Ladies and gentlemen, it has been far too long, and I'm pleased to announce that it's finally time for another episode of Stone Speaks. In this video, I have the awesome privilege of sharing with you a conversation between my dear friend and decorated Danish rock journalist Henrik Tuxen, author of these two amazing books, go check them out, link in the description, and my favorite guitar player of all time by a wide margin, Stone Gossard. I always get those two confused. I chose today's interview segment because it begins to poke at a thought that I certainly never had as a kid and probably didn't until very recently appreciate as an adult, but it's the idea that a band is a business. And if you consider how many businesses have been in business for 30 years and compound that with how difficult it is to keep a band together, and we're going to do this a little different today. Normally it's my stunning intro, followed by some personal Pearl Jam experiences shared by Herr Henrik, then Stone Speaks, and then I pop in at the end with something insanely insightful. But given today's video is dedicated to Fred Penner, a topic about which I have much to say, I'm going to do my segment tomorrow as a sister video, so watch out for that. And so without any further ado, let's extend a humongous heartfelt thanks to Stone and Henrik and turn it over to them. Also, super special thanks to Channel Mom Kara in Canada for the stunning drone footage of the Canadian Rockies, which you will enjoy while Stone speaks.
Hey, this is Henrik from Copenhagen. Ryan, he asked me if I had some fun anecdotes with Stone Gossard, and I would say I have quite a lot. There's been quite a lot of good ones. So I think I'll just pick a few. One thing, like a real recent one, I was in pretty recent, like in 2018, I was in Seattle. It was actually not for the home shows. I was also there, but it was like a couple of months before, when I was like as a journalist writer covering the opening of Nordic Museum, and then it was like the Danish ambassador. He was this super big grunge fan, and even like the crown princess of Denmark was there, and I just got to talk to her a little, and she was like, they were competing who was the biggest Pearl Jam fans, her or Frederick, which would be a future king. But anyway, this guy, the ambassador, he also talked, the Danish ambassador of the USA, he also talked about him playing in a metal band and in a grunge band, and he'd been on this Seattle tour where you see all these historic places from the grunge movement. And anyway, I was meeting with Stone, me and my girlfriend, and we were meeting, and he suggested, like, we met 7 in the morning at Starbucks in Seattle, and that was because he had one of his girls had sleepover friends, and they were sleeping, so he could just make it. Anyway, I told him about that, and we talked about these grunge tours, and then he was like laughing. I said, "I'll tell you a fun story," and then it was like, not a lot earlier, then he said that Mike McCready had called him, and he said, one of these places where we used to play or practice, I think it was maybe Soundgarden did, that was going to be sold. Probably somebody know that story, and it was and he might be interested in investing in it. I think like a friend was opening a restaurant or whatever, and Stone just, okay, cool, let's take a look at it. Maybe I want to be involved, I don't know. And so he meets Mike, and they're at this place, and that was like where they rehearsed or recorded whatever, and all of a sudden this tour bus comes, and then it's the grunge expedition. It's like you're gonna see the history of the grunge movement, and they're just like, okay, here comes the bus full of tourists and the tour guides and everything, and they come in, and like they just kind of walk in, and I think they ask for directions. Something, I said, just help yourself, and then this tour guide, he talks about all this and that, and like taking pictures. Nobody noticed say anything about Michael Stone, who's actually in the room, and they don't say anything. I mean, they just, no, come in. We're just here for checking out for the place, and even the tour guide, like later on, they leave and they go on, and Mike and Stone, they kind of, they kind of laugh about that, and like, I think actually maybe Mike ended up getting economically involved with that, but they were just unnoticed.
But then you also talked about how we, like as a medium size international company, can sort of do some actions with addressing social change or awareness.
Sure. I mean, we're Pearl Jam is a corporation. I mean, we are a business. We collectively make decisions. We have, stockholder meetings. We are, we have to agree on sort of how we're going about our business. So it's an entity that's bigger than an individual, and in that sense, it has some influence, and it can have influence beyond just the music. So I've always thought that was an important way that we could be, a force for some positive evolution.
Because that's true, and that's great, and that's part of that's also why, I mean, I think that's part of why the fan base is so big and so loyal.
I think it all kind of, I think from the get-go with this band, I think, Eddie's history, when he was in bands in San Diego, and his involvement in different causes back there, I think sort of coming from Seattle and sort of the nature of the community in Seattle and how it operates. I think we've always sort of had this idea that we wanted to do something different than just being a typical rock band, and I think that activism was one of the elements that always from the get-go had been sort of built into our sort of DNA. I wouldn't look at it like we've changed the world. I think that we've scratched that itch, and we've made some statements that had some weight to them, and that caused maybe some change, but also was a calculation that maybe caused some pain in terms of for every effort you do, there's equal and opposite sort of forces have their own effect. But I think Ed's stand on the war in Iraq, particularly the second, the George W. Bush version, still strikes me as one of the most important, and sort of courageous calculations that particularly Ed sort of made, because it landed on his shoulders as much as anyone. But I think that there's a fine, when you look at that, when you look back on the ramifications of that war and the calculus that went into sort of making that choice, it's still evident. It seems evident to most that what we thought that war was about, or what the administration was saying that war was about, was not entirely truthful, to say the least. So, and that the justification for it was proven to be false. So, and once we, being in Afghanistan, then leaving Afghanistan for Iraq, then being stuck in Iraq as that country imploded, and all the folks that were wounded in IEDs and attacks on those soldiers is just haunting in terms of those decisions being made at the highest levels and the ramifications of those decisions playing out in regular soldiers' lives. It's still it's definitely a big deal. So that would probably be one that was maybe the most significant in my mind.
Okay. Yeah.
And but like I said, we have participated, and we could participate more. And so I guess we're doing what we have been able to do. I hope we continue to do that, and I hope that our example leads to even more courageous and more empowered organizations that are using their influence to affect positive change. And I think that that's one thing that we've always wanted to be part of is we want our voices to be heard, especially in collaboration with others. I think that that's where we're effective. I think if we're just kind of out, saying what we think all the time, it doesn't matter. But I think in the form of supporting in supporting efforts that need a mouthpiece, or that need a boost in terms of people being able to see it in visibility. I think that that's where Pearl Jam can be effective. Is we have a big mouthpiece, and we can get a lot of attention, and we don't use it that often, and when we do, then people write about it. So if we're sort of careful with that, and we don't overuse it, and we're smart about how we do it, and we use our sort of internal methodology, which is we kind of we know when we should be together. I think that's been effective for us.
The home shows in Seattle. I mean, there was I was there, so it was so impressive to see how it seemed like you mobilized the entire community and fans, businesses, bands, restaurants. How now it's 2 years ago, or it's not fully 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago, something. Could you see, has that made some change, or can you see some? Did it do something good? Did it start what you wanted or hoped for?
I would say that we raised awareness. We showed the possibility of more collective community action in Seattle. I think we padded some budgets. We helped pad some budgets for a lot of organizations that wouldn't have had money last year that got more. But the homeless crisis in Seattle is still completely full blown, and I think now with COVID, it's even times are even more delicate. So, the $10 million or whatever it was that we were able to sort of get organized and into the system was not significant enough to make any major sort of dent in what's going on. But a lot of the connections we made, and a lot of the sort of alliances that we helped sort of establish, and that were sort of lubricated by our effort, are still in effect. There was some things that happened that I think will end up being, maybe as significant as anything. I think that the city and the county ended up, as part of what we were trying to do, was trying to get the city and the county to work more closely together, and share resources and share data, and to not be so siloed in terms of their efforts. And I think that some of that has happened. I think directly related to our effort. So I think that's good. But this virus and the ramifications of it are something that we're gonna. I hope that we re-energizes our efforts, and it's going to take a lot to, particularly I think we'll probably work closely in Washington State and Seattle to start out with, and then hopefully make an impact in a way that allows others to see that this is the way to do it, is to organizations that you can really be close to, people you're connected with, communities you're connected with, political relationships that are rooted in community. I think those are I think that's where the real opportunities are in terms of making a significant impact, and then sort of spread it as you grow.
Okay, good anecdotes with Stone Gossard. There was this one when we came to South America for my very first time in South America to see the band in Estadio Nacional in Santiago. I think it was the 4th of November 2015, and everything was totally crazy because our plane was 48 hours delayed, and my luggage was 96 hours delayed, including like my contact lenses, so I couldn't see kind of all. And it, although there was like this sold out show with I think 80,000 people or something, just so many people. Stone had not nevertheless kind of have given me 9 free tickets because I have all these people who are involved in publishing my book in South America, and to greet them, and so that was super great. And then we came to pick up the tickets, and that's always like this nightmare because very many places you just can't find that place, and if you and I didn't speak Spanish, and if you find somebody and it's like, well, the Pearl Jam guest list, I'm on the Pearl Jam guest list, and even if they understand, like, on the Pearl Jam guest list, nobody's on the Pearl Jam guest list. What are you talking about? And you go all these places. Anyway, so I ride with Stone, and we kind of communicating back and forth, and he answers me, and then I think it's like, wow, that's like slightly he's writing, but he's like there's some slightly weird, like he didn't read the full message, but well, whatever. We end up we get the ticket, and we get in, and we are in this place, and I don't see Stone. I don't know where he is, but I think I'll see him later. And actually, we had this really great thing that we were the first people to, like right before they played, we got sort of escorted on stage. Like we came and we saw over the full stadium, and then we were like the guest, and we walked past like on front of the stage, and people going crazy because they knew, okay, if the friends and the band are coming, then they will come next, and there was this full path like this catwalk, and we walked through, and we're just like, people were insane, and it was like the first time I haven't been to South America. And that was so close, so the lack of contact lenses didn't even matter. Anyway, I haven't met Stone, I haven't seen, and I can't. So, but we had a great time. But and then the next day, all of a sudden, these messages comes, and it turns out that I was not. I put it in the book. It turned out that I was not online, or we were not connected. Like it was like, it must be like pure telepathy. Is that what it's called in English? Like the messages were delayed like a full day before they arrived. And so Stone, he thought that I had not picked up the ticket. And he said like he waited until 10 minutes before the band were on stage. And I was actually like in the backstage area, and he didn't know, and he was just like looking for me. And he said he put Smitty to find me, and the tour manager, who's like actually now the manager of Pearl Jam. But anyway, so it happened. It was cool, and it was great. And I also thought, well, that was some courtesy that he waited up for me, like for that enormous show, which was actually the opening show of the South American tour, and I think their first show in a long time. We got in, and the telepathy worked, and we also had a super great time seeing the band in Argentina a couple of days later.
I love that last story because it just goes to show, and as I've told Stone myself, when we all picked him as one of our heroes, well, we could have done a lot worse. Thank you so much for hanging out, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you tomorrow.